My 19-year-old daughter spent 7 months creating a sculpture for my mom. And the next morning, we found it stuffed under rotting lettuce in the trash. I climbed into that garbage bin, in broad daylight, at my mother's house. While my nephew filmed me and laughed, I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I simply held the ruined sculpture in my arms and started planning. They thought it ended in the trash, but they had no idea what was coming. I'm Helen Harper, 43, single mom, career woman, former Daughter of the Year. According to no one, I live just outside Santa Fe, New Mexico. My daughter Ivy is an artist, and she poured her soul into a piece she thought would finally earn her grandmother's approval. We'd both been trying to earn that woman's love for decades. Ivy with her hands, me with my silence. But the day I found that sculpture in the trash, dripping in banana peels and grease, something inside me snapped, but not how you'd think. Before I tell you what I did, and how it led to Ivy being featured in a downtown gallery, and my mother becoming a meme hit, that subscribe button. Drop a comment if you've ever been underestimated by family. This story is for you. The story begins. It was the morning after my mother's 65th birthday. I was there to help her clean up after her fancy wine and art gathering. You know the type. Faux intellectuals talking about brushstrokes and existential tension over a single cracker and a single olive. I didn't stay long the night before. Ivy was the main event for me. She showed up nervous, holding her sculpture like it was an offering. 7 months of work. It was bold, emotional. She even wrote my mom a handwritten note. She used the word admiration. She meant it. It should have mattered. But the next morning, when I walked into the house, the only thing displayed on the living room wall was my 10-year-old nephew Noah's crayon drawing of a lopsided house and a sun the size of Jupiter, framed, hung under perfect lighting. I asked my mom where Ivy's sculpture was. She smiled and said, "I tucked it somewhere safe. You know how messy last night got." My gut twisted, but I nodded, tried to trust her. I told myself it was probably wrapped in bubble wrap, maybe waiting for the right moment. Then I went to take out the trash. The moment I lifted the lid, I knew. Ivy's sculpture, crushed between a greasy paper plate and a champagne bottle. I stared at the jagged edge, and I recognized the curve immediately. I had watched her shape it. I had watched her breathe life into it. I dropped the trash bag, climbed into the bin. Let me say this, I am a grown woman. I vote, I floss. I own 2 blazers. And there I was, knee-deep in garbage juice, yanking my daughter's soul out of a bin. The smell hit me like betrayal wearing shrimp perfume. I didn't care. I had to save it. I was still inside the bin when I heard laughter. Noah, my nephew. "Phone up. Recording. She's in the actual trash," he yelled. "Mom, Grandma, come see this." I froze. Then I heard Ivy's car door. She rounded the corner, her eyes locked onto mine. She saw what I was holding. She saw where I was standing. "Did Grandma throw it away?" she asked. Her voice was tiny, already broken. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't lie to her. I just stood there, holding what was left of her heart. She turned and left. That night, I found her curled by the door. She didn't ask if I saved the sculpture. She didn't say a word. She just walked past me into her studio and shut the door. So I cleaned it. I scrubbed off the grease, the meat-colored slime, the betrayal. I placed it gently back on her workbench. Then I sat outside her door. For a long, long time, in that silence, I remembered how we always ended up here. With her, with my mother, Judith Harper, the queen of conditional love, and how Ivy still believed she could win her approval. What Ivy didn't know yet, what I was about to find out, is that some women don't mother. They mirror, and if you don't reflect what they want, they discard you. I grew up in a house that always looked perfect from the outside. Hardwood floors, polished countertops, A fridge that never made noise because it was never old enough to. The kind of place you keep magazine ready in case someone from the art club decides to drop by unannounced. But inside that house, there was this quiet, aching emptiness. The kind that can only grow when people talk at you, not to you. My mother, Judith Harper, was a master of appearances. First, she was a catalog model, then an art blogger, then a local personality with a rotating cast of self-descriptors, visual thinker, creative mentor, intuitive tastemaker. She floated between reinventions like other people change throw pillows. Beautiful, charismatic, magnetic, and emotionally absent. My dad, Greg, was quieter, a financial advisor, barely home, always on a call, on a trip, at a dinner. He provided, that was his love language. Judith. She didn't really have one. Then came Danielle, 5 years younger than me, the miracle baby, the dimpled golden child who could break a vase and be praised for expressing spatial experimentation. Meanwhile, I got grounded for wiping my hands on the wrong towel. I told myself it was just birth order. I was the older sister. I could wait, be patient, be helpful, be invisible. Eventually, I stopped waiting. When my dad retired, the lifestyle didn't, the money slowed, but the spa weekends didn't. Neither did the artist retreats in New Mexico or the wine-soaked gallery events. Someone had to keep it afloat. That someone was me. It started small, a little help with the heating bill, then flights, then medical expenses, then whole vacations. No one asked me directly. That was the beauty of it. They never had to. Guilt is a more efficient payment system than any invoice. And I paid quietly. Then Ivy was born. She was different. From the moment she could hold a pencil, she created shapes, faces, shadows. She drew emotions before she had the words for them. I never pushed her toward art. It was already living in her, breathing through her fingertips. Judith noticed immediately, took Ivy to museums, introduced her to local artists, gifted her thick art books with intimidating titles. For the first time, I believed maybe this would be different. Maybe my mother could love my daughter in the way she never loved me. But it wasn't different. It was worse. Because Ivy couldn't see it, she didn't notice the cold edge in Judith's compliments. She called it honesty. She's not mean, Ivy would say. She just doesn't sugarcoat things. I admire that. And I watched my daughter try to earn her grandmother's love, like it was an award she had to qualify for. She worked harder, created better. She pushed herself until her fingers were raw and her eyes burned from late nights in the studio. She believed that if she made something truly meaningful, she would finally crack the code. She would earn it. The praise, the approval, the look. So she spent 7 months crafting that sculpture. She skipped outings, turned down parties, revised her sketches 100 times. She even included a letter with it. A real, handwritten letter. I remember her sealing it. She didn't show me what it said, but I saw her face. Hope. Pure, fragile, blinding hope. At the party, Ivy waited until the moment felt right. She handed over the wrapped sculpture like it was a piece of her soul. My mother peeled back the paper, studied it for all of 5 seconds, and said, "It's good." No smile, no curiosity, no real reaction, just those 2 clipped words. Ivy smiled anyway, nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. But in the car afterward, she asked me, "Do you think she meant it like a B+? Or just a B?" She wasn't joking. She was analyzing it like it was a test score. The tone, the pause, the twitch at the corner of her grandmother's mouth. I wanted to scream, to tell her the truth, that Judith wasn't a gatekeeper of taste. She was a narcissist who couldn't feel pride in anything that didn't reflect her own ego. But I didn't. I told her the only truth I could. "I'm proud of you. What you made is beautiful. She nodded slowly, then said, "If she didn't like it, she would have told me. She's always honest." And something inside me cracked, because what Ivy called honesty was indifference polished into neutrality. And I knew then, no matter how perfect Ivy made that sculpture, it was never going to be enough. That brings us back to the trash can. That moment, me inside it, clutching the clay heart my daughter made for a woman who couldn't even pretend to care. Judith didn't just toss a piece of art. She discarded proof that Ivy existed in her eyes at all. And if that was the moment everything broke, what came next was the slow motion shattering. Because Ivy didn't just feel rejected, she felt erased. And when a young artist gets erased by someone they love, they don't always scream. Sometimes they create something dangerous. I didn't sleep that night. After Ivy shut herself in her studio, the whole house went silent, like even the walls knew something sacred had been broken. I cleaned the sculpture the best I could, picked out lettuce bits, wiped off the wine stains, peeled away a slice of soggy bread from a curve she had shaped with her bare hands. Then I placed it back where it belonged on her workbench. I didn't knock, I didn't say a word. I just left it there and sat outside her door, waiting. And thinking? I thought about Judith, about all the ways she'd trained us to believe her approval meant something holy, like a blessing from someone who saw the world more clearly than the rest of us. But the truth, her praise was just another form of control. She never praised us to lift us. She praised to direct us, to own us. And Ivy, poor Ivy, still thought she could earn it. That night, I sat in the hallway long enough for the light above me to start flickering. I stared at the floor, wondering how much of my life had been spent waiting outside closed doors, hoping someone inside would finally see me. When I finally drifted off in that hallway, it was closer to morning than midnight. And when I woke up, Ivy was already in her studio, working. But not on the sculpture. She hadn't touched the piece. Instead, she was painting, fast, furious, charcoal smudges on her cheek, her sleeves rolled up, no music, no distractions, just that quiet, focused fury that only artists seem to understand. I didn't interrupt. I knew that look. I'd seen it before, in myself, even years ago, when Danielle got away with something that would have gotten me grounded for a month. I knew what Ivy was doing. She wasn't healing. She was transmuting. Pain into pigment, grief into shape, rage into movement. And then she did something I didn't expect. She picked up the sculpture and broke it. Not by accident. She shattered it on purpose. With her fists, clay pieces flew across the table. The once perfect form she'd labored over for months was now a jagged mess of ruin. I flinched at the sound, but Ivy didn't even blink. She just kept going. She added plaster. She embedded paint. She glued torn bits of her own sketches into the gaps, like she was patching a wound with pieces of herself. Then she reached for the letter, the one she had written for Judith, and ripped it into strips. She didn't throw it away. She embedded the letter into the sculpture. The words no longer made sense, just fragments. I love you. Thank you for seeing me. I wanted this to mean something. Each scrap frozen in clay. Each sentence now part of something brutal, honest, raw. Later that afternoon, I brought her tea. She didn't look up, but I saw something on the table that hadn't been there before. A small digital photo frame. I leaned in to see what it was looping. And there I was. Me. In the trash. Shoulders hunched, clothes stained, holding Ivy's ruined sculpture. She'd used Noah's video, the one he recorded and posted in the family group chat. Ivy saw me watching the screen. Her voice was flat when she said, Noah uploaded it, thought it was funny, said, Aunt Helen dumpster diving for garbage art. Put a raccoon emoji under it. I swallowed hard. And the rest of the family? She shrugged. They laughed. Or ignored it. Same thing. I felt something rise in me. Not anger. Not shame. Resolve. Because I saw what Ivy was doing. She wasn't hiding the pain. She was preserving it. Turning it into a statement. A record. That's when I knew this couldn't die in a group chat. Or get buried under silence and embarrassment. No. This had to be seen. That night, I called in every favor I'd ever earned in the local art scene. Gallery contacts. Friends of friends. Anyone who owed me a coffee and 15 minutes of their time. I didn't pitch it as a show. I told them a story. About a girl who gave her heart away and watched it get thrown in the trash. About a mother who climbed into that trash to get it back. And about what they turned it into. Some ignored me. One didn't. The next morning, that one call turned into a meeting. A gritty downtown space used to be a mechanic's garage. Still smelled faintly of oil and old tools. But it had walls. And light. And more than anything else, it had space. Space for Ivy's grief. Space for her rage. Space for the sculpture no one wanted to see until now. The gallery wasn't much. A converted auto shop with cracked concrete floors, dusty halogen lights, and the faint smell of brake fluid clinging to the walls. But it was perfect. Not in spite of its flaws, but because of them. When Ivy and I stepped inside that empty space, we both knew it. This was where the story belonged. Not in a white-walled museum curated by elitists. Not in some polished, soulless hall. Here, in a place that once held broken machines, now ready to hold broken truths. The gallery owner, a man named Tomas, listened more than he talked. He walked around the sculpture twice, didn't say a word, just watched the video loop of me, knees deep in the trash, dragging Ivy's art out with shaking hands. Then he turned to Ivy and said, "This belongs here." She blinked. "Seriously?" He nodded. "People need to feel something again. This hurts. That's rare. Don't waste it." Ivy didn't respond. She didn't need to. She turned her head away so we wouldn't see the tears. We got to work the next day. No signs, no introductions, no wall text, just the sculpture, placed gently on a worn pedestal in the back corner. Neutral lighting, letter fragments frozen in clay, video on loop beside it. It told the story without explanation. A girl offers love. A woman discards it. Another woman climbs into the garbage to retrieve it. And together, they rebuild something from the wreckage. We didn't add anything else. The silence said enough. At first, Ivy resisted. She hated the idea of making it public. "It's personal," she said. "It's not supposed to be performative." I nodded. "But what she did to you, that was personal too. And she didn't keep it private. She humiliated you. They laughed. They made a joke out of your pain." I paused. "This isn't revenge. This is testimony." She didn't speak, just stared at the piece like it might betray her again. "Finally," she whispered, "what if they don't get it?" "They don't have to," I told her. "They just have to feel it." We set the opening for that Friday. Not a grand event, just a soft showing, word of mouth, a few artists, a couple critics, no banners, no wine. We weren't chasing hype. We were chasing healing. And still, the room filled. Art students in paint-stained jackets, middle-aged women who cried and said it reminded them of their own mothers. Quiet couples who stood still for 15 minutes, watching the trash bin loop on screen. Some wrote notes. Others just nodded. By the end of the night, Ivy sat in the corner, not speaking, just watching strangers see her. Not judge her, not correct her, just see. That night, I tucked her in with a cup of warm tea and kissed her forehead like I used to when she was 5. "You're safe now," I whispered. But I was wrong. Because stories don't stay contained. They ripple. And this one had already begun leaking out. The first headline showed up on a local blog. The grandmother who tossed a masterpiece. How one sculpture survived rejection. Then another. Art from the ashes. A daughter's pain becomes gallery gold. No names. No quotes. But enough context for anyone connected to us to figure it out. Especially the family. And that's when the real storm started. Judith showed up 2 days later. At my front door. In beige slacks and a cashmere scarf. With Greg, of course, trailing behind like a pale shadow. She didn't knock softly. She rang the bell 3 times, each chime like a summons. I opened the door halfway, let the silence hang. She shoved a copy of the Journal of Visual Culture into my hands. Ivy's sculpture was on the cover. Bold text above it read, "Wounded object is truth." Her face was tight, her voice sharper than glass. "They're calling me heartless," she snapped. "Irrelevant." I leaned on the doorframe. "Well," I said, "one of those is a matter of opinion." She didn't laugh. She demanded I correct the record. Said I should make a statement that the trash can was symbolic, that it was all part of a guided critique exercise, that Ivy and I planned it together to stir conversation. I stared at her. "Are you lying to me, or to yourself?" I asked. Her eyes flickered. She tried again. I was pushing her. She needed to be challenged. "No," I said. "You didn't throw her art away to inspire her. You threw it away because you didn't think it mattered." She went quiet. The dangerous kind of quiet. Then Greg finally spoke. "We can't pay the mortgage," he said softly. "The gallery job's dried up. We need help." For a long moment, I just stood there, feeling everything at once. The decades of dismissal, the manipulated guilt, the twisted logic of people who hurt others and called it love. Then I said it. "I'm done. I'm done paying for your comfort. Done protecting your reputation. Done letting you use Ivy's light to hide your shadow." Judith stepped forward like she might say something profound. But I beat her to it. "You want a press release?" I said. "Here it is. I cut you off. Financially, emotionally, legally if I have to." And then I shut the door. But Judith wasn't finished. "Not yet?" Because when narcissists lose control, they do the only thing they can try to take credit for the damage. You'd think that would be the end of it. That after being publicly embarrassed, called heartless by anonymous critics, and having her carefully curated image cracked wide open, my mother would have stepped back, maybe taken a breath, reflected. She didn't. Instead, she doubled down. Because people like Judith Harper don't retreat. They reframe. The first legal notice came in a cream-colored envelope, tucked between junk mail and a Pottery Barn catalog. It looked harmless enough until I opened it. Judith was claiming joint ownership of Ivy's sculpture. Her argument, that the piece reflected their shared relational dynamic, and that no piece of art exists in a vacuum. That her emotional contribution and personal role as catalyst made her part of the creative process. I almost laughed. Almost. But it was too absurd to be funny. 2 days later, a second letter arrived. This time from Danielle, my younger sister and mother of Noah, the one who filmed the infamous ant in the trash video. Her legal notice argued that the footage used in Ivy's installation was Noah's intellectual property, and as his legal guardian, she was obligated to seek 30% of all profits. She even attached a spreadsheet. I stared at that email for a full 5 minutes before I could speak. "They're not just trying to erase her," I finally said aloud. "They're trying to profit from the erasure." I showed Ivy both letters. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat on the floor of the studio, hands folded in her lap, eyes hollow. "They're serious," she said. "Yes," I replied. She nodded once, then whispered, "Let's fight." So we did. We lawyered up. The case didn't last long. Noah had posted the video himself in the family group chat, 16 relatives. No privacy setting, no watermark, no copyright disclaimer. The caption literally read, "My aunt is actually in the bin," then a raccoon emoji. Danielle's lawyer claimed the footage was still his creative content. Our attorney smiled and said, "And Ivy used it in a larger transformative work commentary expression, emotional reclamation. That's called fair use." The judge agreed. "This is art," he ruled, "not piracy." He tossed the claim out like it belonged in the same trash can I had climbed out of. Judith's argument wasn't any stronger. The judge asked her a simple question. "Did you knowingly discard your granddaughter's sculpture and the attached letter?" Judith began spinning immediately. It was a critique exercise. Performance art. A lesson in resilience. A symbolic rejection to spark deeper work. But the judge cut her off. "The artist's intent is clear," he said. "This piece was personal. It was transformative. And any so-called inspiration you provided was not collaborative. It was emotional harm, not creative input." Final ruling: 100% of all rights and profits to Ivy Harper. No appeals, no extensions, no credit, just silence. The story exploded online the next morning. ArtNet, Hyperallergic, TikTok explainers, Twitter threads, Reddit forums. One headline read, "From trash to triumph, the sculpture that shamed a family." Another grandmother tries to copyright rejection, gets rejected by court instead. My favorite. Narcissist in natural light. The meme was a screenshot from the exhibit, Ivy's sculpture in frame, the video loop playing beside it, and the caption, "She called it good." The art world called it transcendent. They didn't need to name Judith. Everyone who knew her work, her blog, her online critiques, her self-published essay, Honesty as Legacy, knew exactly who it was. The messages started pouring in. Apologies from distant cousins. Old art friends suddenly remembering how harsh Judith used to be. People I hadn't spoken to in years sending texts like, "Is this real? Was it staged? Is Ivy okay?" And somehow Ivy she was better than okay. She was free. We turned down the first offer for the sculpture, $14,000 from a New York collector. Ivy didn't even hesitate. "I'm not done with it yet," she said. A month later, the same collector came back offering $32,000. This time, Ivy accepted. Not for the money, but because the buyer called it the most emotionally honest piece I've ever seen from someone under 25. Still, Ivy didn't celebrate. Not outwardly. She just kept working. No fragments this time. No shredded letters. Just her, a block of clay, and her hands moving with a kind of peace I hadn't seen in years. Last time I peeked in, she looked up and smiled. Not for my approval. Not out of relief. But because she felt present. And for her, that might be the most radical piece of art yet. After the court rulings, after the articles, after the memes came the silence. Not peace, not closure, just quiet. The kind of quiet that only follows a storm you didn't start but had to survive anyway. Judith stopped writing. Her blog, once filled with weekly essays dissecting color theory and authenticity in modern expression, went dark. Not even a goodbye post. Just vanished. She deleted her Twitter, stopped replying to emails. From what I heard, a few gallery clients pulled away quietly. One even referred to her as radioactive. Not cruelly, just plainly. Her world shrank. She and Greg sold the house. The big, echoing house with the vaulted ceilings and the $4,000 dining table that no one ever used. They moved into a smaller place in the suburbs, something with laminate floors and fewer windows.
No one sent a housewarming card.
Danielle disappeared too. She stopped texting, no updates, no demands. Even the family group chat went eerily still, like everyone was suddenly aware of the weight of what had just played out in front of them. Noah's raccoon emoji was still there though, frozen in time. Proof that none of this had been a misunderstanding. It was always a pattern. And patterns don't change. They get exposed.
As for Ivy,
She didn't throw a party. She didn't gloat. She just kept creating. Her sculpture sold. Her name started circulating in art spaces we'd only dreamed about before. She was invited to join a group show in New York, then another in Berlin. Then came a residency offer. People asked her for prints. Others asked her to speak. But she didn't say yes to everything. She wasn't chasing recognition. She wasn't even chasing healing. She was just doing the thing that had saved her in the first place, making from truth, not for praise. One afternoon, I passed by her studio. The door was cracked open. She sat in the middle of the room, barefoot, hands streaked with color, her clay sculpture half-formed, a cup of cold tea beside her. She looked up
and smiled. A real one?
Not the kind of smile that begs for approval, not the polite one you force at family events. Just a quiet, present, grounded smile.
I'm okay, she said.
I believed her. It's been 3 years since then. Ivy graduated with honors. She now teaches part-time at the same college that once scared her stiff during critiques. She has her own studio, her own students, her own packed commission calendar. Sometimes she talks about mentoring other artists, especially those whose stories start in silence. She's not famous, but she's seen, and she's whole, which, for us, is enough. I still think about that trash bin sometimes. The sound the lid made, the way my knees sunk into black banana peels and broken glass, how it felt to hold her sculpture in my arms, ruined but still there. Back then, I thought I was just rescuing her art. But I was wrong. I was rescuing a piece of her before they could bury it forever.
And maybe, in some strange way, I was rescuing a piece of myself too.
The daughter I had been, the mother I was becoming, the version of me who finally stopped asking for permission to protect the person I love most. I haven't heard from Judith or Danielle in over a year. But word travels. A friend told me Judith now works part-time at a gallery gift shop downtown, folding postcards next to prints of artists she once dismissed. Someone else said she skips the sculpture section entirely. Fitting. You can only stare at a reflection of yourself for so long before it burns.
Ivy doesn't talk about them.
Not anymore. She doesn't ask questions, doesn't dig, doesn't ache for resolution. Because some wounds don't get stitched, they get transformed. And hers? She turned it into a language only the brave can speak. Sometimes I replay it all in my head. Not the court, not the headlines, not even the gallery. I go back to that single moment, knees deep in garbage, holding my daughter's sculpture, heart pounding in my ears, unsure whether I was rescuing art or what was left of our relationship. And I think, did I go too far? Did I humiliate my mother by letting the world see what she discarded? Did I destroy whatever fragile ties were left with my sister by refusing to make it go away? Or did I finally do what should have been done decades ago? There's this idea, especially in families, that silence is noble, that swallowing pain is graceful, that maturity means forgiveness without confrontation. But I've learned the hard way. Silence can rot you from the inside. And the moment you decide to break it, to speak truthfully, to protect someone you love, even when it means upsetting the order, they'll call it betrayal. But it's not betrayal, it's resistance. For most of my life, I let Judith define the narrative. She was the mother, the muse, the one with sharp opinions and an even sharper tongue. She was always just being honest, just pushing us to be better, just offering constructive feedback. Except it wasn't constructive. It was erasure dressed up in intellect. And Ivy. She inherited that hope, that same hunger for approval, that same quiet belief that maybe this time, if she just did it right, she'd finally be enough. But she already was. She always was. And I think that's what broke me. In the end, seeing my daughter walk into the same fire I'd barely crawled out of. I couldn't let her burn. People ask me why I didn't confront my mother at the birthday party, why I didn't scream when I found the sculpture in the trash, why I didn't make a scene. But here's the truth. Sometimes, the loudest thing you can do is not yell. Sometimes, you show people who they are by standing still and letting them see their reflection. Sometimes, the best revenge is truth. Plain, visible, undeniable. What Ivy made wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. She took everything Judith tried to deny her validation, warmth, dignity, and she embedded it in clay, in color, in fragments of a letter that still said, "I love you," even after being ripped apart. She didn't just expose pain, she transformed it. And that, to me, is power. Not performance, but purpose. We still don't speak to most of the family. The ones who laughed at the video, the ones who stayed silent during the lawsuit, the ones who said, just let it go, as if healing was supposed to be convenient for them. But I don't miss them. Not really.
Because Ivy and I were building something new.
Something that doesn't start with pain and end with pretending. I still have that sculpture. Not the one that sold the original gallery piece is gone. But Ivy made another one. Smaller. Simpler. She left it on my kitchen counter the week after her first solo show. No letter this time. No explanation. Just a smooth arc of clay, broken and filled with gold. Kintsugi style. She didn't say what it meant. She didn't have to. I placed it on the windowsill, where the sun hits it just right in the morning. Sometimes I catch her looking at it and smiling. If you're watching this and wondering what all this means for you, maybe you've been Ivy, pouring yourself into something only to have someone you love treat it like it was nothing.
Or maybe you've been me,
trying to keep peace, trying not to make waves, trying not to break the family, even when it's already broken.
Or maybe, just maybe you've been Judith.
Clutching so tightly to your sense of authority, of legacy, that you forgot how to love without conditions. Whichever role you've played, it's not too late to rewrite it.
Art doesn't fix everything.
It doesn't make rejection hurt less. But sometimes, it gives us language for things we've spent our whole lives trying to name. Ivy didn't need her grandmother's validation in the end. She needed her own reflection. And what she saw there, after the mess, the silence, the grief wasn't someone broken. It was someone becoming. If this story spoke to you, if it reminded you of your own family, your own turning point, your own trash bin moment, share it. Leave a comment. Let someone else know they're not alone. And if you've ever had to rescue your worth from someone else's dismissal, hit that like button. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You're healing. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. And if you take nothing else from this entire video, take this. You are not the trash. You are the sculpture. They just never knew how to see it.